Picture this. You walk out to your garden on a Saturday morning, coffee in hand, feeling pretty good about life. And then you see it. Hiding underneath a giant leaf, half buried in the dirt, a zucchini the size of a baseball bat. And you think to yourself, how did that even happen? Here is the thing. That one zucchini you just found, the one that looks like it belongs in a sports equipment store, that single fruit just cost you 3 weeks of harvest from that plant. Not because something went wrong with your soil. Not because of the weather. Not because you did anything technically wrong. Simply because you waited too long to pick it. Today, I am going to show you something that completely changed how I think about gardening. It is called the harvest frequency method, and once you understand it, you will never look at your garden the same way again. I ran a real experiment in my own backyard this summer. 2 identical plants, same soil, same water, same everything, and the results genuinely surprised me. By the end of this video, you will know exactly when to pick zucchini, cucumbers, and green beans to get the most out of every single plant you grow. If this is your first time here, welcome. I share practical, no-nonsense gardening tips every single week for real backyard gardeners, people with busy lives who still want a productive garden. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you do not miss what is coming next in this series. Now let us get into it. So let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that some years your garden just explodes with produce, and other years it kind of fizzles out after a few weeks, even though you did everything the same? Same seeds, same watering schedule, same fertilizer. And you just could not figure out why. I used to think it was luck, or the weather, or maybe my soil was off. But after years of growing my own food right here in my backyard, I finally figured out what was actually going on, and it had nothing to do with any of those things. Here is what your plant is actually doing beneath the surface, and I promise this is going to change the way you see your entire garden. Every fruiting vegetable you grow, your zucchini, your cucumbers, your beans, your peppers, every single one of them has one biological mission in life. Not to feed you, not to look beautiful in your raised bed. Their entire purpose is to produce seeds and reproduce. That is it. That is the whole game. And once you understand that, everything else starts to make sense. When a fruit on your plant grows large and fully matures, the seeds inside that fruit are complete. Your plant gets a signal, mission accomplished. And the moment that signal fires, the plant starts pulling its energy away from producing new flowers. It slows down. Sometimes it stops almost entirely. Because in the plant's mind, the job is done. It made its seeds. Why keep going? Now think about what happens when you pick that fruit before the seeds fully develop. The plant never gets that signal. It thinks to itself, wait, I am not done yet. I still have work to do. And so it keeps pushing out new flowers, new fruit, week after week after week. You are essentially tricking your plant into a longer, more productive season simply by harvesting at the right time. I like to think of it this way. Imagine you work at a job where every time you finish your task list, your manager just sends you home for the day. You would probably pace yourself, right? But if new tasks kept showing up the moment you finished the old ones, you would just keep working. Your plant operates exactly the same way. Keep giving it something to do, and it will keep producing for you. Let it think the job is finished, and it clocks out. And right now, in millions of backyard gardens all across the country, plants are clocking out way too early because their gardeners do not know about this one simple principle. So now that you understand the why behind all of this, let me show you exactly what this looks like out in the real garden, starting with the vegetable that gets more American gardeners in trouble than anything else. Let us start with zucchini, because zucchini is in a category all by itself when it comes to speed. I am not exaggerating when I tell you this. In the middle of a hot American summer, a zucchini can go from the perfect size to an absolute monster in shish-kebab hours. 2 days. That is all it takes. You walk out Monday morning and everything looks great. You get busy with work, skip Tuesday, check again on Wednesday, and suddenly you are holding something that looks like it belongs in a Halloween decoration. This is not a rare horror story. This happens to almost every backyard gardener at some point, and it happened to me more times than I would like to admit in my first few seasons. So what does the perfect zucchini actually look like when it is ready to pick? You are looking for somewhere between low and ba inches long. The skin should be a deep dark green with a slight sheen to it, almost like it has a glow. When you press gently on the skin, it should feel firm, not soft, not spongy. And the blossom end, that little dried flower at the tip, should still be attached. That is your green light. That is your signal to get it off the vine right now. And here is a simple rule I give to everyone who asks me about zucchini. If it is longer than your hand from your wrist to the tip of your middle finger, you have already waited a little too long. Pick it anyway, but make a mental note to check more often going forward. Now let us talk about cucumbers, because cucumbers have their own warning system that most gardeners completely miss. When a cucumber is ready, it is dark green, firm, and slightly prickly on the outside. For your standard slicing cucumber, you are looking for low to T inches. For pickling varieties, you want to pull them even earlier, around sand to 6 inches, because that is when the flavor and texture are at their absolute best. But here is the part that most people do not know. A cucumber that has turned yellow on the vine is not just a bad cucumber. It is a signal flare that your plant just sent to itself, saying the job is done. And research on vine crops consistently shows that even a single overripe, yellowing cucumber left on the plant is enough to noticeably slow down flower production across the entire vine. Just one. That is how sensitive these plants are to the presence of mature fruit. This is especially important to think about around major summer holidays. If you are heading out for a long 4th of July weekend with the family, do yourself a favor before you leave. Walk your cucumber vines, pull everything that is at size or close to it, and remove anything that looks even slightly yellow. Your plants will reward you when you get back. Because here is the bottom line with both zucchini and cucumbers. Checking every days is not being obsessive. It is being smart. And once you build that habit, the difference in your harvest will speak for itself. Now let us move on to a vegetable that looks completely harmless from the outside, right up until the moment it is not. Green beans are what I call the quiet quitters of the vegetable garden. They do not turn yellow overnight like a cucumber. They do not balloon into something ridiculous like a zucchini. They just sit there on the vine looking perfectly fine, perfectly green, perfectly innocent, right up until the moment you pick one up and feel it, and realize the seeds inside have already fully developed. And at that point, your plant has already started shutting down production without giving you any obvious warning signs at all. So here is how you know when a green bean is at its peak. Pick one off the vine and hold it between your fingers. Run your thumb along the length of the pod. What you want to feel is nothing. A smooth, slender pod with no bumps, no swelling, no texture. When you snap it, it should break clean with a sharp cracking sound. That crisp snap is actually one of the most reliable indicators that your beans are at their best. Now, if you run your fingers along that pod and you feel distinct bumps, round little shapes pressing against the skin, those are seeds. Fully formed seeds. And the moment those seeds are mature, your bean plant receives that same biological signal we talked about earlier. Mission accomplished. Time to slow down. Here's a number that I want you to hold on to, because it genuinely changed the way I manage my bean plants every season. A green bean plant that is harvested regularly, every days when the pods are young and tender, can produce consistently for about weeks throughout the summer. A plant that is left to mature its pods and develop seeds fully, that same plant typically stops productive flowering somewhere around 4 to 6 weeks. That is the difference between 1 month of beans and 2 full months of beans from the exact same plant with the exact same amount of water and fertilizer and care. The only variable is how often you pick. Let that sink in for a moment, because we are not talking about minor improvements here. We are talking about literally doubling the productive life of your plants just by changing one habit. And that brings me to something I am really excited to show you, because I did not want to just tell you all of this and ask you to take my word for it. I set up a real experiment in my own backyard specifically for this video, because I believe that the best gardening advice is advice you can actually see with your own eyes. Here is what I did. I planted zucchini plants from the same seed packet on the same day, in the same raised bed, using the same soil mix. I watered them on the same schedule. I gave them the same amount of fertilizer. Everything was identical. The only difference was how I harvested them. Plant A I picked every days, pulling the fruit right around lotus inches. Plant B I let go naturally, only harvesting when the zucchini reached cert to 6 inches or larger. And I tracked the total harvest by weight every single week for C weeks. Now, I want to be completely honest with you about week E, because I think honesty is what makes information actually useful. In that first week, the two plants were almost identical in production. Plant A gave me slightly more, but the difference was not dramatic. And I think that is important to say out loud, because if someone tells you that you will see massive results immediately, they are probably overselling it. Real gardens take a little time to respond. But week is where things started to shift. Plant A began putting out noticeably more flowers. Plant B started slowing down. By week 10, the gap was obvious even just looking at the two plants side by side. And then came week C. Plant A produced a total of pounds of zucchini over the C-week period. Plant B produced pounds. Same seeds. Same bed. Same water. Same everything. The only difference was how often I picked. Now, if you do that math across an entire summer growing season and factor in that most American backyard gardeners have sometimes Cs zucchini plants going at once, you are looking at a significant amount of extra food just sitting there waiting for you. We are talking about to extra pounds of produce per plant over a full season. That is real meals. That is real value from the same square footage of garden you already have. And the investment required to unlock all of that? Checking your garden one extra time every couple of days. That is it. No new tools. No expensive fertilizers. No extra space. Just showing up a little more often with a pair of garden snips and knowing exactly what you were looking for. So now you have the science, you have seen the proof, and you know exactly what to look for with zucchini, cucumbers, and green beans. But I want to make this as practical and as easy to apply as possible, because the best gardening advice in the world does not mean anything if it is too complicated to actually use in real life. So let me give you a simple framework that you can start using this week, no matter what stage your garden is at right now. For zucchini and summer squash, your target size is low to bad inches. And during the peak of summer, we are talking July and August here. You need to be checking those plants every single day. Not every other day. Every day. Because as we talked about, Sister Bowers is genuinely all it takes for a perfect zucchini to become something you would be embarrassed to bring to a potluck. For cucumbers, whether you are growing slicing varieties or pickling varieties, check every days without fail. Pull your slicers at low to T inches and your picklers at sand to C inches, and remove anything that has even a hint of yellow on it immediately. Do not leave it on the vine hoping it will somehow get better, because it will not. For green beans, check every days and harvest before you can feel any swelling in the pods. For peppers, every 10 to 6 days is sufficient, and remember that picking some of them green actually encourages the plant to keep flowering, rather than putting all its energy into ripening the fruit that is already there. And for tomatoes, check every days and pull them as soon as they reach full color with just a slight give when you press gently. Do not leave them on the vine after they have colored up, hoping they will get sweeter. Bring them inside and let them finish on your kitchen counter away from direct sunlight. Now I know what a lot of you are thinking right now, because this is the question I get every single summer without fail. What do I do about vacation? What happens to my garden when I am gone for sure days in August? And this is such a real and important question, because summer vacation and peak harvest season overlap almost perfectly on the American calendar. So here is exactly what I recommend. Option E is to find a neighbor, a friend, or a family member who would be willing to check your garden every days while you are away, and let them keep whatever they harvest as a thank you. Trust me, once people realize they are getting free homegrown vegetables, they are surprisingly enthusiastic about this arrangement. Option R is to do a full harvest sweep the day before you leave. Pick absolutely everything that is at size or even close to it, even if it is not quite perfect yet. A slightly early harvest is always better than coming home to a garden full of overgrown fruit that has already shut your plants down. And option C applies to when you get back home. If you do find overripe fruit on your vines after returning, remove it immediately. Do not leave it one more day thinking it does not matter anymore. Get it off the plant, because every hour that mature fruit stays on the vine is another hour your plant is receiving that signal to slow down. And before we wrap up the main content here, I want to give you one quick bonus tip that a lot of people overlook, especially those of you who grow herbs alongside your vegetables. Basil is essentially the zucchini of the herb world when it comes to harvest frequency. The moment your basil plant sends up a flower stalk and starts to bloom, the leaves begin to turn bitter, and the plant shifts all of its energy towards seed production. The way to prevent this is to pinch off the top artisan sets of leaves regularly, at least once a week, before any flowers have a chance to develop. This forces the plant to branch outward instead of growing upward toward flowering, and a basil plant that is pinched consistently throughout the season will produce 6 to 6 times more usable leaf mass than one that is left to do whatever it wants. Same principle, same biology, just a different plant. Keep interrupting the finish line, and your garden keeps running the race. Alright, let us bring everything together because I want to make sure you walk away from this video with something you can actually use starting today. After everything we have covered, the biology, the demos, the experiment, the harvest schedule, it all really comes down to 10 simple rules that I want you to remember every single time you walk out to your garden this season. Rule number E is this: when in doubt, pick it out. If you are standing there looking at a zucchini or a cucumber and asking yourself whether it is ready yet, that question itself is your answer. Pick it. Your plant will not punish you for harvesting a little early, but it absolutely will slow down on you if you leave that fruit on the vine one day too long. Rule number R is check, do not guess. The garden does not care about your schedule. It does not know that you are busy with work, or that the kids have activities, or that it rained all week and you did not feel like going outside. Get out there every 2 days during peak summer season and do a real walkthrough. Not a glance from the porch. An actual hands-on check, where you are looking under leaves, feeling pods, and pulling everything that is ready. And rule number 10 is the one I want you to remember above all else. One monster kills the machine. A single overripe fruit left on the vine, one giant zucchini, one yellow cucumber, one swollen bean pod, sends that all-clear signal to your plant and can set back your production by weeks. Find them early. Remove them immediately. Show your plant that the job is never done. Now I want to hear from you, and I genuinely mean this. Drop a comment below and tell me the biggest zucchini you have ever accidentally grown. Length, weight, whatever you remember. I read every comment on this channel, and I promise you, no judgment whatsoever. We have all been there. Some of my personal disasters in the early years were truly spectacular, and sharing those stories is honestly one of my favorite parts of this community. Here is your homework for today, and I am asking you to do this today, not tomorrow, not this weekend. Go out to your garden right now and do a full harvest sweep. Pull everything that is at size. Check under every leaf. Look at the base of every plant. You might be genuinely surprised by what has been hiding out there. And when you see how your plants respond over the next week, I think you are going to become a